Orange Township. Let's get it annexed. It's
It looks, I love it.
two that I had, but she's had. Yeah, it's pretty.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, you guys saw it in July.
Gotta figure out which one of these is the applicant. Because one is tied to that camera and the other one is tied to that camera. I need the video feed. See which one pops up. Because I've not actually done this. I'm trying to get this put where they need to go. I don't know which one is tied to which camera.
Need like light or something, maybe.
I have that one on.
Says on.
Off at the moment. It's not really.
Same thing as the back. I guess when we get the meeting started, we can test it by seeing which one pops up.
I can't remember how you tie the WebEx meeting to this character.
I don't either.
I don't know where Tim is.
July.
It's no spending on this. It was gonna be on the 20th, that was canceled.
Good one. Or is it?
So I can back.
Okay, we'll make sure you have it that way. Okay, thanks.
We need to.
Is that the one?
Yeah, it's his.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think they need to make a motion to, yeah.
So turn the video on. Oh, maybe that's how it's when you choose the camera. Maybe. Test. Test. So that is that camera.
Yeah. No, wait. That can't
Yeah, that
Yeah.
camera. That's why it's showing. I don't remember. See, they're both. Or it's something on here, right? I think there's a setting you have to tell it to automatically do it. Maybe because we can also manually switch it.
Presets. You got the front camera on now. Yes.
I don't know.
Oh, there.
Which one was it on? Do you know? Because that
It was
says
on- it was
auto
on-
switch.
It was on.
Do auto
It was on
switch.
front. Let's see. Okay.
Test.
Should we turn on these things?
Test.
Oh my gosh.
Test.
This is also very delayed.
I know.
Nope.
Okay.
So it's just on a nice delay.
So yeah, we'll just have to make.
Very new.
hanging out.
Where's today? 11/14? 13. Okay, I'd like to call the November 13th, 2025 Development Commission meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. And there's the flag on the side. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have a presentation from the Columbus Growth Strategy. That's you?
That's
Okay.
us. Thank you,
You have
Chair.
the floor, please.
I'm Mark Dravilis with the Columbus Planning Division. This is Louis Taba with the Planning Division and Zone In Project Manager. He's going to start us out.
Yeah.
And then I'll jump in.
Yeah, so thanks for having us here today. We just wanted to come by, and we're seeking a recommendation for the Columbus Growth Strategy. I came here and I spoke to your group, I believe it was it's November now, September, around there. I gave you an update on the Columbus Growth Strategy and where we were with Zone In. And just let you know that what we're here for today is the Columbus Growth Strategy, which will provide the policy basis for zoning. We need the policy basis first. And Zone In, as you know, is our initiative to update the city's 70-year-old zoning code. And we're also developing our first citywide land use policy. The city has never had a citywide land use policy. We started this work in 2021. Phase 1 was adopted in 2024. And right now we are on phase 2. We hope to get the policy phase adopted by council here in December and then move on to the zoning phase, which we hope to have done in the middle of summer 2026, at which point we will begin working on phase 3, which we hope to have done by 2027. So phase 1 addressed about 4% of the city. This phase addresses about 40% of the city. So it gets about 45% of the city done. So with that, to talk about the Columbus Growth Strategy, Mark Dravilis will take it from here.
Thanks, Louis. I'm going to click through a few slides. So as Louis said, what we're doing here is we're establishing the policy basis for Zone In. In phase 1, we had about 2 decades of adopted plans that recommended corridor intensification, put the dense development on the corridors. And that was the policy basis. But when we began to look at the rest of the city, we did not really have the policy basis for phases 2 and 3. So what we've started with is creating, as Louis said, a citywide land use plan. We're bringing it to city council here in early December. This will be the legal basis to proceed with the rest of phase 2 and then phase 3. This policy basis will come in the form of a citywide land use plan. And this citywide land use plan is going to update the 40 plus plans that we have throughout the city that go back as far as 1994. So this is a momentous effort on our part in order to create a comprehensive growth strategy that prioritizes equitable access to housing, economic opportunity, neighborhood vitality for Columbus residents. That's the goal. The solution, again, is we're amending Columbus Citywide Planning Policy. C2P2 was recommended by the Development Commission in 2018 and became city policy. The core element of, so we're going to amend C2P2. We're going to rename it the Columbus Growth Strategy. And the core component of the amendment will be the inclusion of a land use plan, of a map. And this part is going to be a map that addresses phase 2. And then we'll be back next year with the rest of the city to address phase 3. Beyond land use planning, this growth strategy will also then serve as a guide for investment for the city. So as we have a citywide land use plan, it points to areas where there's logical investment that the city should be making in order to support future development. We currently don't have such a guide. Why does this matter? Again, this matters because it's a policy foundation for zone in. That's the most important element of it. But it is a shift in the way we do planning in Columbus from an area to area planning effort to a citywide land use plan. As mentioned, we have 40 plus different plans throughout the city that go back to 1994. They don't have a common theme or North Star, if you will. They are not supporting major growth initiatives that the city needs, and they're impossible to keep up. The planning division cannot keep up with these plans. When it's 1994 and we haven't been able to update a plan, it's a red flag that the mechanism in place doesn't serve. So this is a new mechanism. This is more or less sort of the table of contents of the growth strategy, and it mimics Columbus citywide planning policies, and that there's some big picture ideas that come in the form of guiding principles. The middle part, again, is the land use plan and land use policies, and then design guidelines. There are design guidelines in C2P2 today, but they will be updated. We're bringing updated design guidelines, and they will be put in place citywide. When we did it in 2018, we sort of set it up as an opt-in for communities. What we found is there's not a community in the city that isn't looking for design guidelines in order to help facilitate higher quality development. So when we do the amendment, we're going to amend it so the design guidelines are citywide. These are some key points from the land use plan, the draft land use plan. Flexibility, less focus on land use type and density and more on design. Increased allowance for housing in most land use classifications. A stress on mixed uses, access to jobs. A path for transitioning what we're calling legacy industrial uses to become mixed use. So a lot of industrial uses that exist in older parts of the city that are no longer viable or may no longer be viable, that we want to provide a path for them to become something different. And then job sites also that we're finding not to be viable office campuses, and creating a path where they can become mixed use environments that include housing, but also some office. This is just a glimpse of the map. This has been online for several weeks now. We won't talk about the details, but this is just an image that shows the map that we're bringing to council here in December. And I'm going to give it back to Louis to sort of explain how we've gotten to this point.
Yeah, so these 4 maps at the top show kind of how the process has been going through so far and how it will move forward. So if you look in June, we went to council and we got a resolution of support to do planning at this citywide level and to move forward with a Columbus growth strategy. So here I have an example of an area out on the west side, Hilliard Rome Road. This map showed what was in and what was out. Essentially, everything in light gray will be handled in phase 3. Everything in blue will be phase 2. We then took that map and we created an additional map to engage the community on, which was this following map. And this is what we had 2 months of community engagement and a 2-month survey. So this map took that area and put 3 large land use buckets: mixed use, industrial warehouse, and business and institutional campus. We asked 2 questions of the community for each of these: was, do you support that land use, and at what intensity? So we asked them up to 4 stories, 4 stories to 7, or 8 and above, whatever they wanted. And we received feedback. We then took that feedback and we created the land use plan that we have right now. Each time the map is getting more refined. So what was industrial and warehouse, we kept industrial and warehouse. What was business and institutional campus remains business and institutional campus. But we looked at that mixed use category and the areas that individuals recommended for 1 to 4 stories. That could align with mixed use 1. From 4 to 7, that could be mixed use 2. And then 8 and above could be mixed use 3. We looked at all the comments, we looked at parcel by parcel, and we came up with this map right now. It has 5 colors on it. That's what we're moving forward with the Columbus growth strategy. What we're going to use this map for now is that will provide that policy basis to create the zoning districts or apply zoning districts. So if you look at this map here, you can see some of our zoning districts were created in phase 1, such as CAC, UCT, RAC, Regional Activity Center, Urban Core, for examples. And we will start figuring out what zoning districts apply in these policy areas. And then for industrial and warehouse, we did engage the community on do they support heavy or light industrial? So we'll create some new zoning districts there. We'll create some zoning districts for the business and institutional campus, which is essentially like our mixed use large campus, or I'm sorry, our office large campus districts. And then we're going to create new districts as well for our lower slung mixed use, like something lower than a UGN 1, which has a 4-story head. So maybe a 3-story mixed use or something less than that. So this is the whole process. Currently, we're right here at this land use phase. We hope to get this adopted so we can move forward with zone and initiative. Public input to date. So we did have online surveys. We've had over 3,200 survey responses. We did 4 community workshops, which were advertised, one in the north, south, east, and the west, where we engaged the community. We did pop-up events. We did 26 pop-up events all over the city. We had over 2,078 interactions with individuals at these events where we spoke with people about the proposal and encouraged them to take the survey. We did stakeholder meetings. We did over 100 plus area commission presentations where we spoke to the commissioners and explained to them the process. We did a downtown open house here recently. We had an information station. Most people would have walked by when they came up here where we had reservation time for people to come talk to us. We've had almost a 30-day public comment period most recently that just ended. We've had newsletters through GovDelivery. You can see the numbers there. We've done social media posts, and overall public input has been largely supportive with between 65 and 75% support for our proposal. Our next steps, well, here we are for the Development Commission consideration. We're looking for a positive vote of recommendation to go to council and go for, we'll have a public hearing on November 19th, and then we hope to move forward in December for approval. Anything else? No, thank you.
Seeing you progress.
Okay. So I really enjoyed reading this. I think it's very well done. I had just a couple of clarification questions. And one was in the language, there is in a number of places, X will be encouraged. And I understand this is a policy plan. The question is, is that like, hey, John, it'd be really swell if you could do X? Or is it, hey, City of Columbus has this kind of support for you, financial, technical, whatever? I mean, do you have a sense of that? Or is this just leaving that door completely wide open?
Well, it's interesting what you say, Lou. I'll jump in,
Yeah.
Louis. So it is policy, and we say we need to use shoulds and not shalls. It's not code. That being said, you all know as well as anybody, the power of the language when it's leveraged in the process. And Christopher Lohr, who's often here to represent planning, is sort of our point as much as anybody, who's really, it's gray, but we leverage that language to achieve results. We know we do every month. And what we don't, and your last point, is we currently, without a citywide land use plan, we don't really have the door in order to try to say, and we should look at how we can help you bring that to bear. If somebody's showing up and they're saying, I'm proposing something that's consistent with your plan and it's achieving all the metrics as recommended, how can you help me? I think this growth, that's why we want to call this a growth strategy instead of planning policies, because we want to help to enable projects through investment that are consistent with the strategy. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, Maria, but.
Yeah, no, that does. And the only other question I had then, so by phase 3, it's a blanket over the city. So no more, okay.
Yeah.
So no more, oh, I'm sorry, historic area, we're not talking to you.
We will have 100% coverage at that point. We think it might be the first time in the city's history that we will have 100% up-to-date land use coverage. And we plan on then through this mechanism having, I don't want to say annual yet. I'm going to lean on some of our younger managers, but we want to have an open door to regular updates. If it's annual or if it's every 2 years, so that we maintain fresh land use policy for this city for the future.
Thank you.
Okay.
I've got a couple things, just again, a huge task.
Hey, John.
Sorry.
You gotta bring it a little closer.
You guys have undertaken a huge task, but part of this, in reading it all, I think there's an issue with what you're calling principles and what you're calling vision. There's, I think the principles are really strategies. You kind of got the hierarchy in, I mean, I've done a lot of master planning for corporations,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort of mission, vision, and the principles are actually above everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got
Yeah.
you got some stuff there that, you know, you outlined that are really the strategies that you need for the implementation. And they're not the principles of, and the other part of this that I kind of have worries about, you kind of say this is not to address operational issues or issues unrelated to the built and natural environment, including traffic, healthcare. I mean, that's stuff that's got to be there. And we have more problems and conditional approvals for traffic related issues. And I'm certain that 90% of this group behind you has some traffic issues
Yeah.
that we're going to hear about tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that this thing's got to get implemented together with that stuff. And it's, for my years of being here, the traffic and the development
Right.
are,
Right. Yeah. I mean, Commissioner, I mean, I appreciate your comments and, you know, on the terminology we're using, I mean, I think that's something that we should review because we want it to make sense. And that's something that we'll take a look at. And, you know, one thing that I'm telling, planning staff again, is that, so C2P2 was adopted in 2018 as our freshest, and that was 2018. So we really want now going citywide to amend this regularly. Let's say, for example, we learn in the next year, it's like we didn't get those, we're not calling the right statements the right things. If we fix it now, or if we fix it, we will amend this in 2026 for phase 3. And so my point is, if we didn't get it quite right and it's some terminology, we could fix it. We'll have that mechanism. So that's that. You know, on the traffic part, I get it. You know, that's language that we've used over the years because we really, the heart of our work in years has always been land use planning. And we would communicate with neighborhoods, and our plans really didn't have the ability to bring changes to bear as far as traffic is concerned. We now would like to say that this could begin to change, turn the corner on that. And to your point, how do you separate the two? I don't want to overpromise with such an effort and say that we're going to be, really, it was the 1993 comprehensive plan was the last time the city used a planning effort in order to try to instill standards related to traffic and transportation. You know, can we achieve that? Now I'm unfairly looking over at our DPS staff. He's not the guy, he's part, you know, it's others. But could we begin to, you know, use language in this document in order to influence the way the city does that business? I don't want to overpromise there because it's a tough one and planning doesn't do that planning, but I think it's something we need to take a look at.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, appreciate that.
And just to add to that, in the past 2 years, I would say 60% of our approvals, maybe 50 to 60%, have a ticket on them that you have to get approved for your traffic issues,
Yeah.
or you need to come back and restart the zoning
Yeah.
process. So the traffic moves at a different speed than the actual
If we,
zoning issue.
we need to work to try to create alignment.
Just get a bigger whip.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like, if everybody is situated, I'd like.
Chair, this is going to be like an actual vote, so you'll need a motion in a second, and then I'll call the roll.
Need a motion to bring this to a vote.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, please call the roll.
Janice Keeshinkling,
Yes.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Johnny Wilson,
Yes.
Kane Mukwe,
Yes.
Dan Fertelman,
Yes.
and Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved. Go get them.
Thanks so much for.
You bet. Okay, for anyone that doesn't know, if you're here for case number 4, it will not be heard tonight. It's been tabled. Case number 4 on Old Country Lane. So go get a hamburger if that's. So tonight's agenda will then start with case number 1, Z25-041, 5311 to 5313 Renner Road. Is the applicant here?
Please see your supplemental packet for one letter of opposition. The 0.35 acre site consists of one undeveloped parcel in the ARLD Apartment Residential District. The requested LI Limited Institutional District will allow limited institutional uses, with the intended use being a natural gas distribution facility. North of the site is a warehouse in the M2 Manufacturing District. East of the site are 2-unit dwellings in the ARLD Apartment Residential District. West of the site is a natural gas distribution facility in the I Institutional District. South of the site is an undeveloped parcel in the I Institutional District. The site is within the planning area of the Trey B. Roberts Area Plan, which recommends community commercial land uses for this location. The site is located within the boundaries of the Far West Side Area Commission, whose recommendation is for approval. The limitation text establishes permitted uses and supplemental development standards that prohibit the development of buildings and dwellings and commits to the installation of sidewalk along the site frontage. The text also includes a commitment to develop the site according to the submitted site plan. The requested LI Limited Institutional District will allow institutional uses, with the intended use being a natural gas distribution facility. The text includes appropriate use restrictions and development standards, as well as a commitment to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plan. Although the request is inconsistent with the Trey B. Roberts Area Plan's land use recommendation, staff notes that the proposal is an extension of the existing adjacent use and would not substantially alter the character of the neighborhood. Additionally, the plan notes that industrial development should be designed to increase compatibility between residential and abutting uses and to mitigate environmental impacts, and that screening to adjacent residential uses should consist of structures and/or landscaping to maintain height of 6 feet with 90% opacity. As such, staff recognizes an extension of the existing use and site plan features, including a board-on-board privacy fence to the adjacent residential parcels, as well as street trees and a sidewalk along Trey B. Road, as mitigating factors for support of the use. The proposed guardrail, as shown on the submitted site plan, is under review by the Department of Public Service. Once any resulting comments are resolved to the satisfaction of the Department of Public Service, staff's recommendation will be for full approval. Therefore, our city department's current recommendation is for conditional approval.
Okay, any questions or comments? Dan, traffic issues?
Review of the guardrail is still in progress, but we'll be sure to get that completed prior to the case advancing to City Council.
Okay, are there any speakers here tonight for case number 1? There are none. Okay, you understand you have a conditional approval. We can vote on this based on the appropriateness of the use. But you need to get fixed, all these little missing links fixed up before you go to city council, or you got to come back for here. So if you can attest to doing that, if and when the time comes, or make your deal with city council. All right. Any other questions or
No
comments?
question. So
Yes.
what's the screening along in the north? What is the screening along the north? I assume that's north. Oh, well. Well, then to east, yeah.
We had more on board plans. We've got some information from Social Security that it will be a TSA site. So it won't be more on board, but it will be 90% repaying as well.
Okay.
To get care of those, comments and things like.
Okay.
Trees along both roads on the road.
There'll be trees, also bushes.
You're not proposing that at that time. But-
Okay.
Okay, in that case, like a motion to take a vote.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, please call a roll.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
John Ingwerson,
Yes.
Ken Mukwe,
Yes.
Dan Furtleman,
Yes.
Janice Keys Shanklin,
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved. Okay, let's go to case number 2. Z24-063, located at 1037 Ridge Street.
The 1.04 acre site consists of 2 parcels with an office building and garage in the ARO Apartment Office District. The requested LM Limited Manufacturing District will legitimize the current use. North of the site is an office building in the C2 Neighborhood Commercial District within the city of Grandview Heights. East of the site is an apartment building in the ARO Apartment Office District. West of the site is a salvage yard and sport recreation area, both in the M Manufacturing District. South of the site is the Scioto River. Concurrent CV 24-146 has been filed to reduce parking lot screening, maneuvering, parking setback, required parking, vision clearance, building setback, storage setback, and required separation distance from an adjacent residential district. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. There is no council-adopted land use plan for this location. However, the site is subject to early adoption of the Columbus Citywide Planning Policy's design guidelines. The site is located within the boundaries of the West Scioto Area Commission, whose recommendation is for approval. The limitation text establishes permitted uses and supplemental development standards that address setbacks, parking, maneuvering, landscaping, and screening. The text also includes a commitment to develop the site according to the submitted site plan. The requested LM Limited Manufacturing District will legitimize the current use. The text includes appropriate use restrictions and development standards, as well as a commitment to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plan. The request is consistent with C2P2 design guidelines with the inclusion of on-site bicycle parking. Therefore, the City Department's recommendation is for approval.
Okay, any questions or comments? Dan, any traffic issues?
No traffic issues.
Okay, is anyone here to speak regarding case number 2, Ridge Street? David, nobody's here. Anything you want to add?
David Hodge, attorney for the applicant, can answer any questions.
And with no questions popping up, I'd like to take a motion to take a vote.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, please call the roll.
John Ingwerson,
Yes.
Ken Mukwe,
Yes.
Dan Furtleman,
Yes.
Janice Keys Shanklin,
Yes.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes, you are approved.
Thank you all.
Okay, case number Z25-039, 3812 East Powell Road.
Please see your supplemental packets. You'll find 19 letters of opposition as well as one letter of support. You also received a link to the OneDrive that include a couple additional exhibits for this application if you manage to get a time to look at those. The site consists of 2 parcels developed with an office building and a cell tower in the PCD Planned Commercial and Office District within Orange Township and is currently undergoing annexation into the city of Columbus. Upon the completion of the annexation, the property will be assigned the R Rural District. The requested C4 Commercial District will allow uses, including retail uses, such as a dispensary at this location. And in the LAR3 Limited Apartment Residential District. To the south is undeveloped in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. To the east is undeveloped land zoned in the FR1 Farm Residence District within Orange Township. The site is within the planning boundaries of the Far North Area Plan, which recommends mixed-use regional land uses at this location. The site is located within the boundaries of the Far North Columbus Communities Coalition, whose recommendation is for disapproval. The proposed C4 Commercial District will allow commercial uses, including retail uses such as a dispensary at this location. The Far North Area Plan recommends mixed-use regional land uses at this site, consistent with the proposed C4 district. The plan also recommends redevelopment and reuse of vacant and underutilized commercial and office sites, and is recommended in a manner consistent with the land use plan and recommended design guidelines. Staff also notes that this area is under consideration for an updated land use recommendation and corresponding zoning as part of Zone N economic and housing opportunity. The draft generalized land use recommendation is mixed use, which is consistent with the requested district. Because the site is already developed, the current design guidelines of the Far North Area Plan are not applicable, as the site will likely be rezoned to a Title 34 zoning district as part of the zoning initiative, and appropriate design guidelines will be applied at that time. Staff supports the request for an unrestricted C4 district with the understanding that the screening required by Section 332109 will need to be installed along the north and west property lines within 9 months of the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the intended use. Therefore, staff's recommendation is for approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, Dan, traffic issues on this site?
Access to this site is under the jurisdiction of the Delaware County Engineers Office. We shared this application for their review and they did not have any comments.
Okay. Might I ask, is there anyone here to speak regarding this application? Let me see, stand up, let me see your hand. Okay, we operate by the same rules as City Council. They allow 3 speakers on any application, 3 minutes each for those speakers, trying very much to not be redundant. In addition to that, if you have a representative of the neighborhood commission, he can speak as well. So do you have anything to add to the staff's presentation before we go into the?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair. Thank
Okay.
you very much. Okay, no problem. We'll go right ahead. Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Molly Gwynn, 250 West Street, Suite 700, Columbus, Ohio. I'm an attorney with Ice Miller, and present with me this evening is Eric Kometz, the owner of the property. And we would just like to go ahead and note that, as staff noted, this property did annex from Orange Township effective November 3rd, 2025. We have gone ahead and confirmed that with city staff. It is 2 vacant commercial buildings. They've been vacant for a period of nearly 2 years. And the applicant is proposing rezoning this to a C4 zoning classification. We believe that this evening is a land use hearing. This is a hearing regarding any use that might be permitted in a C4. But this property is proposed to be used as an Ohio licensed cannabis dispensary. And we'd like to go ahead and provide a little bit of background on the regulation around those items, as well as some of the surrounding uses, because we suspect that the commission will hear regarding those items. As indicated, it is in Delaware County. The Delaware County Engineers Office does have jurisdiction over the traffic, and they have no concerns with traffic or site circulation. We would just like to note that per the Far North Area Plan, the plan does recommend mixed-use regional uses at the site. And you will see that surrounding this property, specifically to the northwest, is a large apartment residential limited district. That does allow for up to 11 units per acre. It's an impactful mixed-use apartment residential LARLD that's right there. To the west and south is a commercial plan development district. Both of those properties were partially rezoned from a C4, which is the classification that this applicant is looking to go towards. The CPD planned commercial is a very intensive use. It's advertising over 600 residential units. And interestingly, the ordinance that zoned that property does allow for all uses as permitted in a C4 and does not exempt Ohio licensed permitted cannabis dispensaries. We'd also just like to note that this is consistent with the area as well as the land use plan. The property was zoned as a planned commercial and office space in Orange Township. We believe that it's likely been zoned that way since about 2001, since the structures were present on the premises. We'd like to just go ahead and note that this particular applicant is making roughly $1 million investment into a vacant commercial building that's presently there. That's going to include both facade improvements as well as site improvements, including signage, landscaping, and perimeter landscaping. And so with that, we would just note that this is going to redevelop an area that is presently vacant commercial, consistent with the land use plan. It's going to preserve the buffering along the north and west of the property. We'd also be prepared to comply with the staff recommendations regarding additional buffering. It's going to be about an improvement of $1 million in internal and external improvements to the building. And then we would note that about 35 jobs are being created by this particular parcel. It's about 9 workers per shift, and the jobs range from $18 per hour to about $100,000 per hour. I'd like to have Mr. Kometz at this point introduce himself and talk a little bit about some of the regulation that surrounds the use of the premises.
Thank you, Molly. And I'll be brief to respect this board. 3 points, many of which Molly's already covered, so I'll cover them quickly. The first is the history of the property. It's been commercial for over 25 years. It's been vacant for at least 2.5 years. One of the buildings is fire gutted. There's 85-car parking lot there. We're prepared to make an investment, turn this blighted area into a place that earns tax revenue for the city, creates jobs, and brings some economic interest into this area of Columbus. Second, I'd like to talk about the character of the surrounding community. This is a mixed-use commercial district, as Molly has talked about. You may hear from some folks in opposition that we're in the middle of or at the entrance to their neighborhood. There is not a single house that any resident could live in and drive to our property without driving past at least one or more commercial properties before they reach ours. The houses on the north, if they want to come to our property, they first must drive past a gin and bourbon distillery that has been permitted to have live outdoor music far into the evening past the hours of operation that we would be operating. If any residents live to the east, they would first have to drive past a very large farm in addition to more commercial buildings before they reach our property. Anyone to the west would first have to drive past IKEA, Topgolf with its 100-foot nets, the Galaxy, and as Molly mentioned, a high-density apartment complex that is currently being built in this wooded area that otherwise does surround us. That'll be 5 floors and have over 150 residents in it. There are 2 houses to the south of us that I've heard people say that's evidence that we're in a residential community. If you leave either one of those 2 houses, you first have to drive down a cul-de-sac, go past a healthcare facility with a 150-car parking lot, drive past Sheetz gas station, the Volkswagen dealership, take 2 rights until you hit a lighted intersection where there's 35,000 cars per day, take a left, and then take another left at the gin distillery where you'll reach our cul-de-sac. This is not a residential neighborhood. This is a mixed-use commercial district that we are in. And finally, which zoning code applies here? I've heard arguments that we should be following the zoning code for the Polaris Overlay District. That is incorrect. We are not in the Polaris Overlay District. We are in the city of Columbus. Today, as Molly mentioned one of the tenants that we have interested in this property is a cannabis tenant. And cannabis is a permitted use under the general commercial C4 zoning code in Columbus. It wasn't always this way. It used to be a special use permit, but the city of Columbus has decided that it's no longer a requirement, and now they've even lowered it down into general commercial. Any referendum on cannabis use is not appropriate today, whether marijuana is good for you or bad for you, or whether dispensaries increase crime or promote safety. All of these arguments have already been advanced at the state level by experts on both sides. They've been considered by experts. The voters of Columbus, or the voters of Ohio, in a landslide, have approved recreational cannabis use in Ohio. The city of Columbus has approved cannabis use. This is not about whether cannabis use should be permitted. This is about whether this is appropriate for commercial zoning at this site. And lastly, we are close to Polaris, but as I stated, what Polaris does on Polaris property is of no concern to this board or to us. They say that they do not permit cannabis use, but they do permit CBD shops. You go into any of those CBD shops, you'll find unregulated THC products, which the federal government just banned this morning, so those will be no longer allowed to be sold there. But what they do at Polaris and what they consider to be noxious or not noxious, or who they permit to be tenants on their facility, has no bearing on what we permit in the city of Columbus. So I ask that this board consider the zoning code for the city of Columbus and apply that zoning code today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if you will turn the table over to some speakers, we'll bring you back afterwards.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Jim.
So you indicated that hourly wages were $18 to $108,000 an hour.
Excuse me. Yes, no, general salaries of over $100,000
that's-
and $18 an hour
Okay.
right now. Yeah.
I just wanted some clarification. Because I was like,
And
what's
full,
happening?
and full health benefits, by the way.
108 was what got my attention per hour.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, our area commission, neighborhood commission. Give us your name for the record and.
Yes. My name is Jim Palmisano, and I'm the president of the Far North Columbus Communities Coalition. Z25039 was presented to us on October 7th. We respected and admired the applicant's decision to indicate the proposed use of the property, fully knowing that it would probably be controversial. So we did appreciate that. There was strong interest from the businesses and the residents in the surrounding area. And for this reason, I was sensitive to providing a forum that would allow all points to be made by the applicant, the trustees, and the neighbors, and to be made and counterpointed. I believe we were very successful in that regard. The discussion was overwhelmingly civil. No party was denied an opportunity to be heard or provide their rebuttals. The motion to approve was made, and a roll call vote resulted in a failure to approve by an 8-1 margin. And I would say the trustees just simply felt that this was not an appropriate use of the site at this time. So basically, to summarize, I would say we heard everything from both sides, and we voted very, very definitively against it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, have you boiled down your three speakers? Okay, let's have your first speaker step up. Give us your name for the record, and we will pay close attention.
My name is Erica Faust. Thank you, Chair and members of the Development Zoning Commission, for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Erica Faust, and I serve as a trustee for Orange Township, where this property is currently located. I'm here to provide context for the proposed annexation and to represent the residents of Orange Township who oppose a C4 zoning classification for this site. Following the passage of Issue 2 in November 23, numerous marijuana-related businesses contacted the township to assess potential interest in locating within our borders. After discussions during our trustee meetings on February 6th and July 24th, 2024, the board voted 2-1 to permit up to 2 dispensaries within the township, provided they were situated on property zoned for retail use. The parcel in question, however, was zoned in 2008 specifically for a daycare. Even so, the applicant purchased the property in January of 2025 and then appeared before the trustees for the final zoning hearing on February 13th, 2025. During the rezoning process, the township received extensive community feedback. By my count, approximately 15 emails were submitted in support of the proposal and over 40 in opposition. Both the Zoning Commission and trustee hearings drew over 50 attendees, the largest turnout for any zoning matter during my 4 years as a trustee. The majority of people were in opposition to the location. In preparation for my vote, I reviewed other Ohio dispensary locations operated by Ascend Wellness or Ohio Patient Access. According to Google, each of their sites is located in a clearly commercial setting, including gas stations, hotels, restaurants, a casino, a county engineer's office and road salt yard, a storage unit facility, and similar businesses. In contrast, while 3812 East Powell Road does sit across from a distillery, it serves as the eastern entrance to a 2.3-mile road containing more than 75 farm residential lots, 5 single-family subdivisions, and 3 condominium developments. Additionally, the Galaxy project, as mentioned, will add 557 apartment units. Olentangy School's Transportation Department indicated that 38 individual school bus stops serve students along this road. The building on this property was constructed in 1994 and later rezoned specifically for the daycare use to ensure compatibility with the surrounding residential character. Although traffic and population have increased over the years, the corridor remains primarily residential. The applicant indicated that the proposed dispensary would operate until 9 p.m. with its highest traffic volumes occurring between 4 and 7, the peak commuting hours, and elementary school drop-off. While it would be open to an office use within the existing structure, I do not believe a retail use, particularly under a broad C4 classification, is suitable for this location adjacent to residential neighborhoods. For this reason, I respectfully urge the commission to recommend denial of the proposed rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker.
Good afternoon, now evening. My name is Fran Myers. I actually live on Worthington Road, and I'm here as a voice for a lot of the residents behind me that are opposing this rezoning at the intersection of Worthington and Powell Roads to a C4 zoning. There are reasons the dispensary is not the ideal use or consistent with this area. First, because of House Bill 56, which, as we know, does not at this point guarantee revenue back to the city itself. Second, at this point, there's little to no data of the impact of this dispensary on our surrounding homes. This leaves homeowners all along East Powell Road and Worthington Road, including all the adjacent cul-de-sacs and subdivisions at risk without any history of the economic or the safety impacts. Third, and most importantly, there are currently already 4 licensed dispensaries within a 5-mile radius of this location that are just outside the Polaris district. There's plenty of access to sales, and all 4 of those dispensaries sit in clearly defined commercial centers. We do not need to sacrifice the integrity of our neighborhood by approving a broad use zoning that will produce yet a 5th dispensary within 5 miles. There are 2 parcels in this area that have been approved for commercial use. This particular parcel and also the dog distillery that we're referring to, it differs from this location. It has limited hours. It's not open until 5 o'clock on most days, which is past the time of the school drop-off, and most days, and it's even closed 2 days a week. It's marketing itself as a destination venue for hosting weddings, family reunions, and work events. It's an inviting venue that keeps the character of what we were trying to accomplish in this area. Other than those 2 parcels, East Powell Road is 100% residential from Worthington Road to South Old State. Another location that's come into question is Acorn Farms that we referred to, but that was opened in 1976 before a lot of these subdivisions, and it's still to this day zoned FR1. It is possible to keep mixed use here, which I know is the plan. A C1 or C2 zoning class would allow for that and allow for the buildings to be reused, and it's a reasonable and responsible land use. A C4 zoning creates a concern of high traffic, some long-term concerns of changes in ownership or use, as well as safety concerns for reasons, including the bus stop that unload the Olentangy kids on the next corner, which is right past this drive. This parcel is surrounded by homes. There's homes sitting directly next door. There's one directly across the street. There's one directly on the opposite side of Worthington Road. This map does not show it effectively, but if you're looking at those, all the ones that are not highlighted except for one, are residential lots. This side of the commercial was intended to absorb the more aggressive C4 zonings that are on the other side. It's not meant to add to them. The east gateway that comes to this location is indicated by street signs. If you go to the right, it's Worthington Road, but if you make a left, it's IKEA Parkway. It's very intentional. It's very clear that there's a difference between the two. Finally, it's important to note that this proposal has already been reviewed and rejected twice. The applicant had strong opposition from the residents at Orange Township and knew he could not get the zoning he needed. Subsequently, after saying he was going to work with the residents of the area, he applied for annexation, assuming Columbus would automatically approve this without any opposition. Recently, he received a near unanimous vote of 8-1, giving him a no from the Far North Coalition. There's no emotion to those votes. They were all rooted in sound land use reasoning. Columbus should not override the thoughtful planning that has long defined this area, and I appreciate you considering voting no to this rezoning. Thank you.
Okay, and our final speaker.
Members of the commission, thank you for letting me speak tonight. I just wanted to ask if I could give you some maps that show the area in question, their aerials. Okay, my name is Franz Geiger. I'm Managing Director of NP Limited Partnership. We're the original land developer of Polaris Centers of Commerce, which, as many of you know, is a 1,200-acre development in North Columbus. I've worked there for 28 years, and we worked very hard to establish high standards, a quality development with design standards, use standards, and I'm proud of what we've done. Eric mentioned a use that we had tried to go after, and we did put restrictions against marijuana use because we did not believe that it adds to the value of our development. It doesn't elevate the community. And as you've heard, there's already some in the areas. But I'm here tonight to not only represent our development, but I'm also president of the Polaris Owners Association, which is over 120 owners and over 1,000 businesses. Those businesses and the owners have agreed that we don't need marijuana dispensaries in our development. We do have limited LC4 zoning. The site next to it it's a CPD, but it has limitations. It's not straight C4 zoning. So this particular use is going to come in and be sandwiched between residential, when you see my map, residential on at least 3 sides, and then a limited commercial to the south and to the west. We don't allow certain uses under C4 zoning, and nor should this site have those uses. I believe we should limit this site. I'm not opposed to a rezoning. It does have some commercial application, but would pawn shops be appropriate here? Would dispensaries be appropriate here? Would cash checking be appropriate here? Would a used car dealership be? Those are some of the uses under straight C4 zoning, and I would say no. This site is a unique site because even though it's a high-profile site on a corner lot, and it's the gateway to Polaris from the residential, but it's also the gateway to the residential area, which makes it very interesting. And it's on the periphery, so it's not really in the intensive commercial part of the development. And I just want to say this does not pass the smell test. And how do I come to that conclusion? Just yesterday, there's Laurel Health, which is on that map. They're right across the street. They have their corporate office there. And I went into their office. I said, hey, do you know that there's a rezoning hearing tomorrow and they're going to rezone that site? And then she said, the daycare? And I said, yeah, they're going to rezone. And she said, to what? I said, to a dispensary. She was flabbergasted. She doesn't know anything about zoning or land planning, but in her intuition tells her that that's not the right use for this site. The other thing is not every legal use is an appropriate use. Yes, this is a legal use. It's appropriate in some places, but this isn't the right place for it. The state regulations already deem this a noxious use. Why do they deem it a noxious use? Why do they have all these protections around this particular use like they would other noxious uses? They do that because they're trying to protect the public. and certain institutional uses. So if we had a daycare, which I'm not sure, we don't have some homeschooling within 500 miles, but if we did, this use would not be allowed. But guess what? We have 8 or 9 other of those protected uses in the area. So wouldn't the rationale be that we should also consider those uses and the impact of this use on those? So I think if you use your prudence here, you'll come to a conclusion that this is not good land planning to stick this particular site up in this area. As I said, we have a huge economic impact on the area. We're an employment center. We have national retailers. You may say, well, Franz, this is a retail use. Why can't they, sell their product there? Well, here's the problem. Most of the retailers that I deal with that we want to have to Columbus that are going to increase sales tax and have a great economic impact, they don't want to be next to dispensaries. They give me restrictions on our sites and say, we don't want it. So it doesn't elevate the development and it doesn't elevate the area. The other thing is I don't want to relitigate the election. Of course, it was voted in. But how many in this room, if you said, would you vote for that legislation? If we're going to put a dispensary right next to your house, how many people would vote for it? I bet you we'd be up around 98 to 100% and say, I would not vote for that. So that's the issue. It's a land use issue. It's not the use. Many of us would say the use is fine, but we don't want it right next to our home, and I can understand why. The other thing is, we talked about this, the societal concerns. There is a potential effect for sure on property values. So we're trying to raise Columbus up, keep the employment center, generate tax income and all the other income for the area. And my concern is once we have a use like this, then we're going to get other uses. What other uses now are going to be allowed? It's going to be that, death by 1,000 cuts. So at some point, we won't have the quality development that we currently have. Finally, I just want to say that we also compete with areas like New Albany, Dublin, Worthington, Westerville. Those communities, Westerville allows for 2 in their whole community, but they have highly restricted areas where you can have dispensaries. The other ones do not allow them. That's my competition up at Polaris. That's who I compete with to try to get people to come and put their businesses and bring their employees to increase the income tax revenue for the city. Not all of those people want to be where there are dispensaries. I'm afraid that it will put us at a competitive disadvantage if this use is approved. Traffic and design, I'm just going to be real quick. On the traffic, I'm going to have to talk to the Delaware County engineer because we have a shared drive with this particular use. There's going to be a lot more traffic. How is that going to work? We have a site that borders that, so that has to be worked out. And also, I have not seen a dispensary typically have high architectural standards, nice landscape standards. I've seen the 2 that were built we had no say over. I heard they were going to be nice businesses. One of them is not very attractive. It's not compatible with the neighborhood. So I ask this committee to use your prudence, understand that this is not good land planning, and please vote no against this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your input. Please come back to the table. I perceive there's razor sharp edge between procuring alcohol versus procuring cannabis versus using alcohol and using cannabis. How would you respond to that?
Yes, I mean, first of all, we would note that you cannot use this product on the premises. You cannot even display it on the premises, and I'll let Eric speak to that more as well. I have some other things to add too.
Yes, there's clear, to address your point, alcohol and cannabis use are very different. A recent study just showed that cannabis use in this country has outstripped alcohol use in this country. The FDA has declared that alcohol use is cancerous and causes cancer. So the number of bars and restaurants that serve it, 75, 77 in the area sell it. Not only do they sell it at restaurants and bars in the area, but you're allowed to consume on those premises. The regulations in the state of Ohio that we must follow or else we'd lose a license. We're not allowed to display any product. Well, let's start actually when you drive onto the facility. I don't know how much this board might know about dispensaries, if you've ever been to one or if you've read these regulations. But when you drive to a dispensary, the first thing you'll notice when you pull into the parking lot is there's cameras everywhere. There's lights everywhere. Per state law, we have to have the entire perimeter and parking lot surveilled and lit. When you walk into the dispensary, you're going to be met by somebody who's checking your ID. If you're under 21 years old, you're not allowed in unless you have a caregiver or you're a patient and you're with an adult. Once you do get past that security, you're going to find there's absolutely no product anywhere on the sales floor or on any of the shelves. We're not allowed to have it. So there's no risk that somebody's going to come in, a child's going to come in, or someone's going to steal product. There's no reason for someone to come in and try to create crime here. There's no product for them to get. All the product is kept in a secured vault. Many of those vaults are per FDA standards. Those vaults nowadays are 12 inches thick. There's no risk of anyone stealing anything. When you do buy product, it comes to you in a bag that is nondescript and stapled. You must then take that product, get in your car, and leave with it. If you consume the product in the store, if you consume the product on our premises, you will not be allowed to come back. If the state finds out that you do that, we're going to be cited. If that happens with any degree of regularity, we're going to be losing our license. There's no noise that happens at these dispensaries. People don't get out of their car in groups and celebrate that they're at a dispensary. Most of the people come as single individuals. We have several elderly patients who come. Cannabis use helps with sleep, helps with pain. There's been so to compare it to alcohol use, I will say, yes, alcohol went through its years of prohibition and it came out of its years of prohibition. Cannabis has gone through its years of prohibition. It's coming out of those years of prohibition. There's been reference to 4 or 5 other dispensaries in the area. I'll point out that one of those dispensaries is called AYR, A-Y-R. It's on the north edge of Polaris. Very similar to what we're having here. And I know Polaris advanced the same arguments at their BZA hearing that they advanced here. The board listened to those arguments, and the AYR dispensary is in a neighborhood. It is surrounded by single-family homes. There are apartment complexes there. We are not nearly high-density residential. We don't have the residential that AYR has. The BZA, the city of Columbus, heard all those arguments, and they rejected those arguments because they said AYR is not in Polaris. They said AYR is following state regulations. All the concerns that the neighbors had are addressed by state regulations. There's not going to be noise. There's not crime. The studies bear it out. I mean, we can produce studies, they can produce studies, but like I said, the litigation of cannabis has already happened by experts. Those arguments have been considered. Don't need to argue them today, but I hope that addresses your question regarding cannabis and alcohol.
Okay. Anybody else? Comment?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I just want to add a little bit regarding the history of this property in Orange Township. This particular property did receive a recommendation of approval from the Zoning Commission in Orange Township. And we also submitted, it was late, but it should have gone with the supplemental staff approvals, a statement from another trustee in Orange Township indicating her support for this. And I'd like to just go ahead and read it. It is already part of the record. I won't take too much time. It indicates, I'm a trustee at Orange Township in Delaware County in 2024. After 58% of our residents voted yes on issue 2 the prior fall, a fellow trustee proposed allowing a dispensary in our township. And after additional vetting of the application, the use, and the proposed 3812 East Powell Road address for the facility, 2 of our 3 trustees, including me, voted to allow this use in July 2024. This property has been commercial for years, is adjacent to the city of Columbus, and is currently surrounded by the approved Galaxy use, a high-density development of commercial and high-rise apartment buildings and garages that include a direct cut-through from Polaris Parkway to East Powell Road. The cannabis business is highly regulated and restricted in the state of Ohio, and my extensive research indicated that there is absolutely no increase in crime around areas that have dispensaries in every area. The applicant relied upon our discussions and our vote to change our law for this use and later purchase the property. The applicant has been very easy to work with and was a good partner through this process. We have had many hours of discussions, and they have modified their plan in numerous ways to accommodate our community, including hours of operation, colors, additional buffering, etc. I felt comfortable allowing this use and especially appreciated the millions of dollars in excise and income tax the township would receive as a result.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I have a,
I know,
okay. Oh, sorry.
My question is, and again, similar to what the area commission had mentioned, I commend you all for opening the door because you knew what was going to happen when you said dispensary here, right? So, but we are looking at a C4,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
So, questions surrounding it could be that you look at right now, right? The daycare is no longer. Could be that something falls through and this has now opened the door to another buyer or another developer, right? So that's where I'm at, all right? I kind of the dispensary talk is up here. I'm more down here on the C4.
Thank you so much, Dr. Conroy. Yes, that's absolutely correct. There are two buildings that are vacant on this parcel. One of them is slated for a dispensary. As you noted, we have opened the door, tried to be an honest broker on that. The other could go to any C4, correct? We would submit this is a land use hearing. This is not an opportunity to relitigate the legality of cannabis. Those questions have been handled at the State House. We understand you're going to hear about them, so we'd like to touch on them, but thank you. Yes, correct. Yes, ma'am.
I guess my question then is the second, if that goes, the comfort level that you all have. So the kind of the issues of bar nightclub, that's one thing, but some of the other uses, is there a limitation that seems reasonable that would include, and I don't know this from folks here, that includes dispensary, but that would limit other uses?
Dr. Conroy, you're the first person actually to ask me that question, so I appreciate that. So I'm kind of going off the cuff here without having talked to my partners in this. But speaking for myself, I would not be opposed to certain limitations on that other building. I know that there might be concerns because of the broadness of the C4 use. We have no intent to put I can't remember all the uses that were listed, but right. I will tell you, we've been approached by doctors who want to do like a rehabilitation clinic there, a pain management clinic. We've been approached by people that want to do a spa. Those are some of the tenants that we've been talking to. I'm not opposed to any sort of limitation that would prohibit us, I should say, from doing a car dealership or any of the other uses that were mentioned as being noxious or unacceptable.
Thank you.
Dan?
My question was around the C4. I don't know what my question is, to be honest.
Well, an unlimited C4
Right.
is open for anybody to do anything that fits in
Right.
those use descriptions. Many times we look at a project and say, what actual uses are we going to allow in that C4? And which ones are we going to disallow because of the location and the composition of the community? That's a valid question.
I've done 3 dispensaries in the past in Ohio. And the state regulations are extremely restrictive. I've probably done a dozen proposals for sites that didn't get through the lottery back when the state was awarding licenses. But everything is so well vetted, and Ohio is very careful to have, no display of product. The security and the controls, the safe in a dispensary is the same safe that the federal government uses for top secret documents. It's higher than an armory where they would store munitions. It's the highest level of safes, and the safe ends up costing about 50 grand. Anyway, the other part of this is, there are visceral objections, obviously, to what's going on as marijuana use, but I will tell you that the alcohol issue in the state of Indiana, a child in a restaurant or a bar is not allowed to see a drink being prepared. So there's all levels of what's comfortable and what's not. And most of these studies that were presented in our supplemental package are, California or Colorado studies about crime and about property values, and they're all about 10 years old. And they all talk about the deleterious effects for low-income properties, inner city properties. And this is elucidating to me that there's so much objection to a strictly controlled, almost pharmaceutical prescription activity that would go on in this building, that it would somehow corrupt the youth. I'm sorry, I don't see it that way.
Okay. I've never partaken of any kind of cigarettes, the other kind of cigarettes, or any of the other. I broke my collarbone and my wildest medicine was a leaf because I refused to take the other stuff. I've never been to a dispensary. It's never entered my mind. But compared to a dispensary for, say, lima beans, that would be worse in my book. So it's a fear factor kind of thing. Is anybody going to be using this right there or taking it home? And if there's a Gen location and celebrating peoples that hit some holes in one on the golf galaxy, they may be a danger on the road. We can't control that. And I understand the overall complex and complicity of all the good things that have happened. And, Polaris is a major motivator of business and economy in the north part of Columbus. This property is already kind of isolated, in my view. And I think maybe when you get into the site planning, that management and that image should be almost medicinal to never let the idea that it's a party house if this goes on. But I do have sympathy to the people that live right there, of the idea of something that they don't want their kids to do. They've never done themselves. They have no interest in it. And that's my background. That's where I come from. But I've sat on this board here for 30 years, and I understand that landowners have property rights. And those property rights need to be dealt with, even if you'd rather not have them right next to you, if they're properly controlled. If there's some buffering and the traffic issue is not having an adverse effect. And I really don't see this in this location. But I do understand both sides of this very complex question. I appreciate the professional way you've went about your business. But we have to vote on very simple terms. We're not German Village, and we're not the Short North. We're not Dublin. We don't vote on what color your railings are or the design of your shutters on your windows. Is it practical? Is it appropriate? Or is it not? Very simple. So I think we're to the point where we need to take a vote and state our feelings. And each one of us is a different person with a different background. So I'd like to call for a motion to take a vote.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of taking a vote, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, please call a vote.
Kay Mukwe,
Yes.
Dan Fertelman,
Yes.
Janice Keys Shanklin, Maria Conroy,
Yes.
John Ingwerson,
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes. There you go. You are first.
Thank you.
I will say this, when we have a split vote, just for all you folks in the room, when we have a split vote, 5-1, we send an information sheet that goes to city council. This whole thing will go to city council in approximately a month. And we will have a line for each person's comments on what we found to be the means of voting yes or no. So do your homework and be ready when you go to city council. You'll have the same forum. You'll have room for your area commission, and you'll have room for 3 speakers. And you were very appropriate with your presentation. Okay, that's it for case number 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you want us to pass it around.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, Janice, why don't you go first with this? All right. Well, as long as you're clear now, I'm gonna make a run for the men's. Right?
Feel what I feel.
Right.
Having a powwow, what's going on?
They're heading to the men's room, holding hands.
Seriously? Have you just?
Yeah, can we get the form started?
Janice is,
Going, yeah.
she's doing it.
If, it all is. I usually cut out you guys when it comes down to the.
Oh, well, no, it's whatever you think. What?
It's more cool.
Oh. Well, they're here for other stuff, for traffic. Ah.
Oh, really? That's all. Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah.
Okay, case number 4 was previously tabled. which means we will go directly to case number 5, Z25-019, 4691 Central College Road.
Please see your supplemental packet for 22 letters of opposition and a signed petition. This case was tabled at the July 2025 Development Commission meeting. At that meeting, the request was for an LAR1 limited apartment residential district allowing up to 216 units. The updated proposal reduces the proposed number of dwelling units from 216 to 175, a reduction of 41 units. This case was subsequently on the agenda for the October Development Commission meeting, but was tabled before the meeting. The 10.1 acre site consists of one parcel developed with a single unit dwelling in the R rural district. The applicant requests the LARLD limited apartment residential district to allow for the development of an apartment complex with 175 dwelling units, representing a reduction of 41 units from the previous proposal. North of the site are single unit dwellings in the R1 restricted suburban residential district of Belden Township. South and west of the site are single and multi-unit residential developments in the PUD4 Planned Unit Development District. East of the site is an undeveloped parcel in the R Rural District. The site is located within the Little Turtle District of the Northland Plan Volume 2, which recommends single-unit residential development at a maximum density of 3 units per acre. The site is located within the boundaries of the Northland Community Council. The NCC reviewed this site as an LAR1 limited apartment residential district, allowing 176 dwelling units, and received a recommendation of disapproval. At the time of finalizing this, I apologize. The site is located within the boundaries of the Northland Community Council, whose recommendation is for disapproval. The limitation text includes use restrictions limiting the maximum number of dwelling units to 175 and includes supplemental development standards addressing perimeter yard, landscaping and screening, and includes commitments to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plan and building elevations. The Columbus Multimodal Thoroughfare Plan identifies Central College Road as a suburban community connector requiring 100 feet of right-of-way. The requested LARLD limited apartment residential district will allow an apartment complex containing up to 175 dwelling units in accordance with the submitted site plan. Although the proposal is higher than the recommended density of the Northland Plan Volume 2, the plan does note that if an alternative development pattern be sought for this area, this plan recommends that consideration be given to the surrounding rural setting and land uses. Staff notes that the proposal is adjacent to multi-unit residential developments to the west and townhome developments to the southeast. And the proposed site plan includes adequate buffering from Central College Road and adjacent uses. And the city department's recommendation is for approval.
Okay, any questions of the staff? Yeah, Kraft.
Just note that work has begun on the Central College Ulrey Road reconstruction project, which would be expected to increase the capacity of that intersection to accommodate growing traffic volumes in the area.
And that's already, construction's already.
That just recently began.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Anyone here to speak regarding case number, what are we, five? 1, 2, 3 lined up. Very good. And you have your speaker for the commission. Okay. Anything, David, you want to
Yes,
add to
please.
the presentation?
Sure. David Hodge with the law firm Underhill and Hodge here tonight on behalf of the applicant Preferred Living. Most of you will remember that we were here several months back. Since that meeting, we were grateful that several of the community folks were willing to have a sidebar meeting with us, which we went out and conducted, received feedback from that group that based upon some revisions that we we're making to the proposal that we come back and meet with the Northland Community Council, which we did. Notwithstanding those revisions, we are still here tonight with 0 votes from Northland, as we were when we were here a couple months ago. Several of the things that we've done, and I don't know if we could put, not my slides, but just the site plan up on there. Is there a way to rotate that so north's north, or no? No big deal. And then Chair Fitzpatrick, can I come over and point at the screen as I go through some of this? So one of the things that we were able to do is reduce the density being proposed about 41 units, as you heard from staff. We were originally at 216 units. We have since reduced the proposal to 175. By going down to 175 units with the acreage that we have, we actually go down a category of zoning. We were previously at an AR1. We are now at an ARLD. So again, the density is reduced. What we've done in the reduction of that density is this northernmost building. We've reduced it from a 3-story building down to a 2-story building. And we've done the same with all of these buildings along the western side of the property adjacent to the attached product, the multifamily product, condominiums to our west. So that's how we reduced it from 216 down to 175. You'll note from an earlier proposal, these western buildings were at one point rotated so that openings to the building, balconies, etc. The feedback we got is that they didn't want those looking into people's yards, so we were able to rotate the buildings so that that is not occurring on the building ends. Up on the northern portion of the property, we increased this setback from the plan that you previously saw by 100%. We went from a 50-foot setback to a 100-foot setback. The perimeters on this, and some of this is consistent with what you previously saw, but the perimeters on this along the west, you can see the mounding that's proposed. You can see the landscaping that's proposed, but the code minimum setback over there is 25 feet. We've increased that 100%. So we are at a 50-foot setback over on the west, adjacent to the attached product. The same holds true on the south. That setback is increased 100% from the base minimum under the code. Along the eastern portion of the property, and this is a city park over to the east, had early conversations with Brad Westall in Recreation and Parks. We originally had that at the code minimum 25 feet. Mr. Westall said, we'd like you to increase that. So we were able to increase that to 37 feet. So over on this eastern portion, we are 48% more than the code minimum. The commission should also know that along the eastern perimeter and along the western perimeter is already very heavily landscaped. So along the park, there's heavy landscaping both on the park side of the property and on our portion of the property. And when we set these buildings back 37 feet, we're able to maintain every bit of that landscaping, plus come in and augment that landscaping. Same holds true on the west. When this attached product was developed, you can see here they came in and did some evergreens. Those evergreens are mature, and there's an existing really heavy landscaping buffer over here to the west. Nonetheless, we're going to come in, all that gets maintained. Nonetheless, we come in, maintain all of that, maintain what's there, set our buildings back 50 feet, build some mounding, and do some landscaping on that. A couple of other things that we did on this plan, and Mr. Ingwerson, it was your comment that you have this park over there to the east, you're doing nothing to embrace the park. I'm not sure embrace was your word, but something along those lines. Along the northern portion of this property, with the Central College Road improvement that you just heard Dan mention, a shared use path is being installed. We would have installed it, but the city's doing it as a part of their proposed improvement. From that shared use path, you can see an interconnected network of pedestrian paths all throughout that, including along this eastern portion so that these units can then embrace the park. I mean, these units are beautiful. They are literally going to be looking over into a park, into a wooded preserve. We create this loop pedestrian opportunity and have a couple of centralized seating areas so that folks can embrace the park and take advantage of that opportunity. We also came down here in the center and created a central gathering amenity space, as you can see there, interconnected with the pedestrian network that goes throughout. It's a pergola and some seating areas with sidewalks that can get you up on the entire loop. I'm only just now getting started. This is to me, and maybe I'm a little bit of a nerd for this stuff, but this is to me a fascinating night of the Development Commission based upon the presentation that you heard Mr. Dravilis and Mr. Taba give you in the beginning, and certainly with the cannabis case. But to me, it's a super interesting night. What Mr. Dravilis said and what Mr. Taba said is also a perfect segue into some of the things that I'd like to talk to the commission about as we go through this, and that really I want the commission to consider. It occurred to me as many times and as long as I've been doing this that it had been a very long time since I'd gotten into the city code and reviewed the Development Commission obligations, the Development Commission functions, the Development Commission duties. And so I got into that a little bit throughout the course of this, and that is all in 331013 of the code. And essentially what it says is that the Development Commission's duties, powers, and authority are granted by ordinance and also by section 71302 of the Ohio Revised Code. And essentially what 71302 of the Ohio Revised Code says is that the Development Commission operates in furtherance of policy. Operates in furtherance of policy. So we heard Mr. Taba and Mr. Dravilis earlier talk about a growth strategy was one of their buzzwords. We heard them talking about a major growth initiative was one of their buzzwords. We heard them talking about policy to enable projects was another one of their buzzwords. When we were here a couple months ago, I read a couple of quotes. I'm going to read just a couple more, if you'll bear with me. The first is from the mayor, from the executive branch of our local government. And what the mayor says is that when you grow by a third as a region, nothing will stay as it is. I don't want Columbus to accept the fate I view Seattle, Austin, and San Francisco fell into as their populations boomed. They missed an opportunity to preserve affordability in their communities while they still could, but we will not accept that fate in Columbus as a region. That's the executive branch of the city of Columbus. From the legislative branch of the city of Columbus, Council President Hardin said, growth's a great thing, but housing is a huge problem waiting to be solved. We're bringing 15,000 new jobs a year, but building around 5,000 housing units, literally pushing people out of affordable housing into homelessness. Council President Hardin also said, this is one of the reasons why you have to densify portions of the city and portions of the region. You must actually put our land to better use when we think about how do we create more housing units across the city. So that's what we're doing here tonight. You know, if this was a popularity contest, I sit here and admit to you, I lose hands down. I lose the popularity contest. Thank goodness this is not a popularity contest. This is a policy discussion. And the policy of our city, based upon the code, based upon the executive branch, based upon the legislative branch, based upon the directive from the planning level management that spoke here earlier this evening, is to create housing in our community. Now, that doesn't mean do, high rises. That doesn't mean go do things irresponsible. But when you come into a project, go through a process, interface with the professional planning staff. They give you feedback that results in a recommendation of approval. Then when you go out to a neighborhood, meet with them on multiple occasions, listen to their feedback, modify your proposal in accordance, doubling setbacks, north, south, west, and a 50% increase essentially to the east. When you are modifying the orientation of buildings, when you are modifying the height of buildings, I think that you have taken the process seriously, and I think that you have been earnest in embracing rational feedback and incorporating that into your plan. I'm going to stop there. We'll listen to what my friends and the neighbors here have to say, and then I'll reserve a little time at the end to come back and address some of the things that they raise.
All right. Thank you for your input. David?
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Kirkpatrick and members of the commission. My name is Dave Paul. I'm the co-chair of the NCC Development Committee, which serves effectively the same role as an area commission, as you know. I would like to just quickly correct, I think Ms. Saltzman made an error in that she was saying that NCC heard the case when it was an LAR 1. We did, in fact, that was back in May, and we recommended disapproval 16-0 at that time. We then subsequently in September heard the case, I believe exactly the same case you're hearing tonight, for an LAR LD with 175 units rather than 216. So I think we're all talking about the same proposal and about the same land. I'm not aware of any changes since we met with the applicant in September. There are many folks here to speak with you tonight, as you know. I'd like to save some time just by reading the comments that we put into our report, which I shared with staff on September 25th, and I think you've got in your packet. Approximately 60 members of communities surrounding the proposed project site attended the committee's hearing on September 24th, of which 7 were permitted to speak with the applicant and the committee. All were opposed to the project. The consensus of the committee was that, considered alone, the design of the proposed community is attractive, and the current design is an improvement versus the one that was presented in May 2025. However, it is still being proposed at entirely the wrong location. The high density of the project at more than 17 dwelling units per acre continues to be incompatible with respect to surrounding developments, which average 3 dwelling units per acre, in keeping with the recommendations of the Northland Plan 2 for this district. And the project lacks any transition between the proposed high-density project and surrounding low-density residential and park uses. Concerns remain with regard to the impact of apartment residents and twice daily school transportation on local traffic. I know that there's some relief in sight for some of that. Lack of any nearby mass transit services, potential for vandalism and theft of numerous ungaraged vehicles, and reduction of quality of life for existing property owners and residents within the district. I wrote that on behalf of the committee. I believe that still stands as the committee's general impression of this application, but I would like to just add a little coda at the end. I think many of us in this room, including members of the commission, are trying to achieve the highest and best use for the land that's in question here. I would hardly think to lecture the commission about what their authorities and functions are. I think we understand that. I think the chair, having had 30 years, congratulations, sir, doing this job, he knows what he's doing.
I was only 12 when I started.
There you go. I think we are trying to achieve the highest and best use. We've spoken with the applicant and their attorney, and we are convinced that what the applicant and their attorney has proposed is not the highest, best use. And they have also advised us that what we believe to be the highest and best use is not within their capacity. It's simply not their product. I personally believe that if this applicant was to learn that the commission shares our view that this is not the highest and best use. They'd not be able to proceed with this. There are other suitors. There are other developers who do have something that at least gets much closer to the highest and best use, who have been constrained from doing so now because the property is in contract. So all that being the case, I believe the committee would urge you to give the applicant and their attorney a very clear message that what belongs to this site is something that is more compatible with the surrounding neighborhood and also is simply the highest and best use of this property. We do not believe this proposal is that use. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments for David? Okay, we may have a question later, but let's hear, again,
Very
we're
fine.
going to go to the same game plan of city council, 3 speakers, 3 minutes each. Do not be redundant. Be effective. You seem to already have your team ready,
Yes, we do.
just like the Buckeyes, okay?
Good evening, members of the commission. I'm Matthew Ward, Board President at Asherton Grove Condominium Association. Can you put up our slide, please? Preferred Living met with the associations in September to present a modified proposal as requested by the Development Commission. They did reduce the number of units, the building height next to Asherton Grove, and increase the front setback. Unfortunately, they are nowhere close to the 3 units per acre that we would like to see in this location. The density is still too high. While we understand the city's desire to build a large number of housing units, what they also need to consider in rezoning requests is how the surrounding area is zoned and affected, and the existing property owners invested in their homes counting on the surrounding development to match the city's long-term master plan. This type of rezoning violates the trust between the city and the existing residents. There's been a strong push by the residents and homeowners associations of this area and the NCC working in agreement with the city to limit development to 3 units per acre or less for many years, as is reflected in what is still the city's master development plan for Northland Volume 2. This is plainly spot zoning, as you can see from the area in white. Spot zoning indicates a deviation from the long-term master plan that's not justified here. And the NCC is not opposed to apartment complexes, if it's appropriate, as shown in the approved apartment project in the red area with 1,613 apartments. There's a small area in the NCC district of apartments that was part of a 63-acre rezoning project some years ago that included apartments and single family. In the July meeting, the commission indicated they preferred having apartments close to parks for families, which is understandable. But there are already 1,613 apartments right next to the Warner Road Park. Plus, the developer indicated at an NCC meeting there would be limited number of families, children in the proposed complex, and I believe it was said it called it an enclave to itself. In the past few years, 2 other developments were completed in this part of Olery Road at 3 units per acre, and there are other developers also interested in this properties for single-family homes if it becomes available on the market. Please keep like property uses together and not in the middle of a much lower density residential neighborhood. Condominiums and single-family homes also need to be built to reduce the housing crisis and give people a chance at the American dream of home ownership. We ask that we review the proposal and see that it is not in the best interest of the existing neighborhoods. There is more than enough useful value for the land as single-family homes or condominiums, and reject the zoning request as submitted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Terry Casto, and I'm president of the Lee and Alry Community Association. I'm here to respectfully ask that you deny this project. What we, the 12 surrounding communities, are asking is that you continue to develop this area by the Northland Plan 2 vision and our investment into that vision. Our 12 communities, consisting of nearly 900 homes, that's an average of $400,000 per home, which is a $360 million investment into that vision. These 12 communities, my neighbors sitting behind me, backed by the Columbus City Council, City Development, and this commission, and the NCC Development Committee have worked over the last 25 years to develop that vision, which is our neighborhood. This area is not a major or even a secondary corridor. It's a neighborhood of single-family homes where one can bring their family. There's a park where one can ride or walk to the park. All of this is part of the Northland Plan 2 vision. A place to escape the hustle and bustle of the major corridors, yet close enough to major highways to get anywhere in the Columbus area in less than 45 minutes. The Northland Plan 2 was developed for just this reason. We understand that for Columbus to grow, we're going to need single-family homes and apartments, but there's a time and a place for both. It seems at this time developers want to build apartments everywhere there's an open tract of land. However, this particular tract of land is not the appropriate place for this particular development. What we ask Columbus to remember is that these apartment dwellers are going to eventually outgrow these apartments and will be looking for single-family homes. If there are no single-family homes, they will be forced to move out of Columbus to a community that has looked forward and realized that they needed to build a long-term community, one where people can live, work, pay taxes, and not just a place to work. This applicant is now looking to sledgehammer 175 market rate apartments onto a 10-acre lot. This is not a significant change from their first proposal. Their reasoning is that their return on their investment just isn't there below this number. We've heard this over and over from other developers over the last 25 years. Yet those developers found a way to make a profit on the accepted Northland Plan 2 of the 3 units per acre. If Preferred Living would just take their development east of the church, outside of this edge of the Northland Plan 2 area, Rocky Fork Black Lick Accord has provided for multiple apartment complexes, which has given housing diversity to the area. What we, the 12 communities, are asking is that you continue to develop this area according to the Northland Plan 2 vision and our investment into that vision. Again, we respectfully request that you deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Suzanne Harnicher. I've lived in Northland for 45 years and in my community where we're talking about for 25 years. I'm also on the Northland Community Council and I'm on the Development Committee as well. The parcel property we're talking about is 10 acres and it's on Central College Road in Northland. And it's kind of a unique rural setting where there are many houses that are on like 1 to 5 acres with just one house. The Northland Plan is still in effect and its density standards are 3 to 1. And I should say that for 25 years, both the developers and the city have supported that. 2 projects recently finished, the Cove and Parkside follow the 3 to 1 density rule. There's 2 more projects coming ready to do construction. One's in MI Homes, one's Simonello, and they have said they will follow low density priorities. The Preferred Living project, after their reduction, is still 17.4 units to 1 acre. They went from 7 times the density in our area to 6 times, not that much. It's excessively high in density and it's out of character with the neighborhood. This project does not transition from single-family homes. It doesn't respect the density, the setbacks, or the character of the neighborhood, in our opinion. The area surrounding the proposed project, as has been stated, has over 800 single-family homes, 1,600 apartments, all right next to the park. So we're not against apartments, and don't think we are. We in Northland are pro-development. Northland's Development Committee passes things all the time in favor of building, as long as it's appropriate and fitting to the area. There's other developers, as was said, who are interested in this size of land and would develop it accordingly. Preferred Living makes a nice product, but you ask them to meet with us. They did meet with us. However, they didn't even come close to coming halfway in the middle with us. They're still at almost 18 units per acre, not 3 to 1. And they've told us they're not interested in building anything with low density. They can go down the road just a short piece actually and put in an apartment building, and it would fit in much better than where we are. Again, the Northland Council has voted this down twice unanimously, saying it's totally inappropriate for the parcel and it's squeezed in between homes and the park. We in the community strongly believe the preferred living proposal is not appropriate, and we ask for your support and voting against it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I never asked you about traffic issues on this property. Is there anything that we need to know about traffic-wise?
You did. I just mentioned the Central College and Ulrey Road project. That was the only note. We reviewed this application. We had some comments on various site layouts, and all our comments have been resolved.
Okay. Okay, David.
Thank you, Chairman Fitzpatrick, and I'm going to do my best to be reasonably brief. And certainly, my intention is not to lecture the Development Commission. It was eye-opening to me to roll up my sleeves, go back and do that research and understand what the purpose is. What are we doing here? It was fascinating for me. And frankly, it helped my argument. And so I decided to share it here tonight. I've also got a pretty long track record of working with area commissions, and certainly Northland Community Council is no exception to that. I've done a lot of work, and certainly Northland has in the past supported apartment residential projects that I've been counsel for. However, what you heard Mr. Pohl say, Mr. Ward, Ms. Casto, and Ms. Hardinger, they all said the same thing. They said, this is not the highest and best use of the land. They each said that the highest and best use of land is 3 dwelling units an acre. We ask in meetings, what will you support? 3 an acre. 3 an acre, David. 3 an acre, Jared. 3 an acre. Not 3.5, not 4, not 7, not 17.4. That's 0. So their opinion of the highest and best use of this land is 3 dwelling units an acre. I respectfully disagree. I think that 17.4 is an appropriate density here. You asked us to go back to the drawing board. We did. We seriously increased setbacks. We reduced building height. We reduced density. We did so much that we were able to tick down one district. There was also discussion of spot zoning. I respectfully disagree with the assertion that this is spot zoning. I'm not going to ask anybody to pull up the exhibits, but there are certainly AR1, AR12, and several other apartment residential zonings in the immediate vicinity to this. And so here we are asking the Development Commission for a vote tonight. We've got a Northland recommendation of disapproval unanimously. We've got the professional planners who are reviewing the proposal recommending approval. We've got the executive branch of our city saying that we need housing. We've got the elected officials in our city saying that we need housing. We've got a policy document to create housing, and you've got an application in front of you that furthers the city's housing policy. So with that, I respectfully request that the Development Commission approve this, allow us to continue this on to City Council, and engage the elected officials who are certainly participants in establishment of the policy to allow us to have that discussion down the street here on the council floor with your recommendation of approval. I'll stop there and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have one creeping question. What is the density of that community that abuts your property?
I believe, Chairman Fitzpatrick, that is a PUD 4 with the open space. You can see the setback from Central College Road with the basin and maybe some wet area to the south. I think they are right around 4 dwelling units an acre, but you note that is attached product.
It's 3.
Yeah, yeah. Fair enough. It's
No,
3.
we were looking at I had Joe pull up the
I do have a
ordinance.
question. How do you feel that this responds to your interpretation of the Northland area plan?
Yeah, so fair question, good question. And the Northland area plan, not sure when that was adopted, but I would take the position that it predates some of the housing pressure that we're under as a community. The Northland plan does talk about supporting appropriate infill development, but I'm not saying that this proposal comports with the Northland plan. I'm saying that we are in a growing city, in an evolving city, and that we have, in terms of what we've done with the setbacks, with the building heights, with the commitment to the high level of quality of architecture that's in here, that we are acting in furtherance of established city policy. You heard Mark Dravillis earlier talk about these area plans and how it has become an impossible task of our planning office to keep up with that on a plan by plan basis. And that's why the city is moving away from that and going to a citywide of sorts comprehensive plan.
And then follow up, how do you see this as an infill?
Yeah, so the vast majority of the adjacent properties are developed, Mr. Ingwerson. Certainly the property over to the east is acquired by the city as a park. The property over to the west is fully developed. The properties to the south are fully developed. And so this is a remaining 10-acre piece of property. You can see up on the screen with a house and a garage up there on the south side of Central College Road. And so it's certainly not coming in and developing a bean field. Maybe it's not infill in terms of coming into Old Town or one of the historic districts, but this is a piece of property that is a development property in the midst of considerable development that's happened all around the vicinity, including on the adjacent properties.
Thank you.
And my question is, to your understanding, I mean, one of the things for deviating, even in the new policy plan that we heard about earlier, one is quality of the development, and another one is connection to transportation. Do you know of any stops along Central College?
The public transit out in this part of town is, it's lacking. In terms of quality, I think that the proposal that we have before you speaks for itself with the site plan, the landscaping, the architecture, which is a commitment, and really, not that this is necessarily on the table, but preferred living's done projects all over town, and I think it's a proven fact.
Yeah, I wasn't challenging anything on the quality. I was looking at the transportation connections.
Sure. Yeah. But we have to start somewhere. I engaged in a conversation earlier today with a client that said, gosh, the city's going to make me build a shared use path out in front of my property. The shared use path is not going to go anywhere north and it's not going to go anywhere south. And you've got to start somewhere. And all of what we're doing here is creating the critical mass so that those bus routes do extend. I was before this commission a few years ago now on a project on Westerville Road between Ennis and Morse, and that's reasonably urban over there. We did apartment residential, no bus routes there either. And so Certainly, we have the new Link Us policy. We have our mass transportation people regionally and long-term planners looking at what's appropriate in terms of future bus routes. And we have to have the growth. We have to have the critical mass to increase that transportation. And 3 units an acre may not get the transportation out here.
I just have a clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
If you don't mind. So you went from 18 units per acre to 17.4. I just wanted to, because I believe it was said that you weren't willing to go down any further. And I just want clarification that that is in fact what you said.
We went from more than 18 down to 17.4.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a greater reduction than that. I think we were, I don't know, I'm terrible at math. We were upwards of 20 units an acre.
Okay.
Reduced at 41 units and got down to 17.4, which allowed us to go to that ARLD.
Okay.
And yeah,
And just to be clear, you would not be willing to go any lower than the 17.4?
no.
Okay, thank you.
David, I look at what you've done on this site plan and it's textbook excellent. It gives you lower density. You don't have any balconies overhanging and looking into the neighborhood yards. You have connectivity. Everything looks good about what you've done. This is a vast improvement from Plan A. We're sitting here on this precipice, and this is getting to be the norm that we're looking at. Is this a city or is this a village? And I think the people here in the audience are thinking this is a village and they want to keep it a village. There's a lot of pressure in central Ohio, not just in the city limits of Columbus, but all over central Ohio to make it more of a city. So I think, as said before in the previous case, we have to vote what is appropriate for this property. The current plan, or is there some other plan that we're not seeing? And the vote is going to be black and white instead of a version of gray. But I commend you for the steps you've taken. I'm not sure it's enough because of the context of the rest of the area and the rest of the Northland plan that Dave Paul pointed out. Yes, Dave.
Chair, I understand you don't normally have rebuttal, but I would like to make clarification if I would be permitted.
Yeah.
Mr. Hodge has said that everyone he's spoken with, all the people you see in front of you, said nothing greater than 3 units per acre. That's not accurate. He has said to you himself tonight that they would not consider anything lower than 17.4. Our question to him was, what would you consider that is less than 17.4? I suspect, I'm going to have to speculate and say, if he had spoken with us about 5 units, 6 units, 7 units per acre, there are those here who would say, no, we don't even want to think about it. 3 units per acre, nothing. We're a diverse group. But there are others who would have given that a lot of thought. Might not have gotten all the votes to make it pass our committee, but you would have seen a split opinion. You didn't see that because the applicant said, nope, 17.4 or nothing. And we had nothing to work with.
Fair point. I'm going to rebut the rebuttal. We asked them what was acceptable, and the answer we got was 3. They asked us what we were willing to do, and we said, we don't have any guidance from you. All we're hearing is 3. And so the other interesting thing, and this isn't a knock on Northland, this just is, Northland meets in a private deliberation, and so we're not privy to what the discussion is. We're not privy to what the other people think. We just get told what the reaction is. That's the first time I've heard that there's anybody on the Northland Community Council willing to support 5, 6, or even 7 dwelling units an acre. Right now was the first time that I ever heard that.
Let me insert something here. Mr. Dave Paul is my favorite community representative.
He used to be mine.
He looks for solutions. And there are many people that are just not into it. My hope is that maybe there is a ground, maybe the person selling this land that sees this is stretched a little bit would lower the price of the cost of the land, seeing what's happening on the floor of a place like this. And specifically in a month when it would go to city council. I would recommend that you are so close to making something happen that I would vote for. As long as there was a softer penetration of the urban look to the village look. And maybe it's 7, maybe it's 9, maybe, you know, I don't know where that line is. And maybe you're not going to get a consensus from everybody, but I think you're going to get more of a feel here. But I think there's a sentiment I'm picking up. There's a sentiment that you need to go another bridge too far to see where a comfort zone would exist to keep a village feeling. And you only show a short area on the front piece of this property. It already looks pretty village to me. Perhaps it would be something to consider to table this, see if you can come to a refinement.
Well, let me just add one last thing in this too. And I know I've taken up enough of your time tonight, and I do appreciate it. But I want to add a little something else in here. You know, clearly this is what I do, and I do a lot of zoning work in the city of Columbus, and you know, certainly pay attention to the projects I'm working, but also pay attention to the other projects that are currently working through the process. And I recognize that the Development Commission is in a very difficult position. You're in a difficult position here. I'm in a difficult position as being a practitioner, as are the other folks in the community that do this. You have this case before you tonight with 0 votes from the Area Commission. You have another case pending before you from the West Scioto Area Commission with 0 votes from the Area Commission. I was here last month out of the Greater Hilltop Area Commission with 0 votes from that Area Commission. I think maybe there's a matter on, or has been a matter on recently out of Westland with 0 votes from the Area Commission. I think all of those have a city staff recommendation of approval. I think all of those, based upon that city staff recommendation of approval, is indicative that they're in furtherance of the city policy. And so it's a tough spot for you to be in. My position is that this is appropriate. My position is that this is the city of Columbus in 2025, in 2026, in 2027, and moving into the future. I have not thumbed my nose at anyone. My client has not thumbed its nose at anyone. We have been respectful. Did I get a little bit animated tonight? When I'm nervous, I do. It's hopefully not a poor reflection on me, and it's certainly not a indication of my respect for you. But I've got a proposal before you that is thoughtful, that is rational, that has taken in feedback, that has listened. Someone said earlier, I said before, an enclave. We've created an enclave here. We have created an enclave that is within a landscape perimeter that is meeting up with infrastructure on Central College Road that is not an issue, according to our city's traffic management department, based upon an extensive city improvement that's happening. Mr. Ingerson, we embrace the park. We embrace the park thoughtfully. We have those units over there, the only 3-story units on this that are in the woods. And so could I table? Could I delay another 60 or 90 days? And could I go back and have a series of meetings with Mr. Paul and the folks at the Area Commission? I could, but that is not the application or the client that I have before you tonight. We think we've got a good proposal, and I do, notwithstanding the commentary here leading up to a vote, but I still ask you to act in furtherance of city policy and let me go have this conversation with city council who established the policy with the mayor and send this on with a recommendation of approval, a split Northland Development Commission, and let me go have that discussion down the street.
Okay, so you would like us.
I'm calling the vote.
Okay. I need a motion to take the vote.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's call the roll.
Dan Fertelman,
Yes.
Janice Key Shanklin,
No.
Maria Conroy,
No.
John Ingwerson,
No.
Kay McQuay.
I was leaning to yes until I saw the overall site plan. And after seeing the overall site plan, it became apparent that you have done a great job in terms of responding to our last comments. The architecture is fine, the site constraint is beautiful, but when now you look at it in context of the neighborhood, it's actually off scale. So for that reason, I think I'm gonna say no.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
Okay, there are appropriate numbers of no votes that this will not pass. I'm going to vote yes, just to approve of the site plan modifications that make this a much better project. And it's up to you to do your best to get to city council. But we are on that threshold where everyone's jumping the fence, and an inch too low, you smash your collarbone. And if you're like John Ingwerson, you jump over the fence.
I appreciate the willingness to listen and to engage in the conversation tonight. Thank you all very much.
You voted
No, I voted no.
Chair.
no. Did you vote?
Can you announce?
I did.
Okay, so.
I was gonna say, can you announce the
No.
results?
Two, and
Exactly, I know.
Mr. Attorney.
Although there's must be. What is?
2, 3, 4.
He didn't pass, did
The
it?
results of the vote?
No,
Oh.
it didn't pass.
I mean,
But.
I think it's clear, but.
Said
Yeah.
he was voting
Those would.
yes.
No,
So, two. So
No, we had two. Yeah, Perlman.
you need to give the final count.
No, it's not approved.
Not approved.
Not approved.
So look at this. Both of you look at this.
That's beyond us.
He can still take it to council.
When this place is full.
No, he can still take it
No,
to
he can.
council.
You're going to a full.
Yeah, it just has a no vote. Has a no vote.
Well, you're going to your house, but I mean, that's no amenity.
I'll let you start.
Okay. I'll let-
He sees the size in, and then he lost any kind of.
I didn't see.
Kind of feel. I mean, he had to put the car somewhere, and I should have asked him if he had a site plan that showed a car in every part.
Everybody, that's why he didn't show it.
I know. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, no.
But he has to lecture you first what your job is.
Hey. I don't know, it seemed like in, what was it, June or July?
Tell Daniel.
But he wrapped himself in, he wrapped himself in the flag.
Well, this is. I was worried it was gonna be the next one. So, find out. I get what he's saying, but. So are we, no, we're not rational yet. We are.
When I get in big fights,
So did you watch Virginia lose?
Which time?
Just last weekend.
Yeah.
We get
Because
ranked.
when I went there, they had the longest losing streak in NCAA history. So
I was there 92 and I got my master's in 92 and 93. And, you know, basketball was still good anyway.
true. So they lost to Hawaii.
UVA, Virginia.
Since he had to squeeze it down.
But the ladies football's doing one. They're the number one. The soccer team is
Soccer team,
number one.
yep. Well, they've had, between them and Carolina.
That is just as.
Yeah, I knew.
It's good.
It'd be nice if they would play at someplace other than Cary, North Carolina.
True.
It's not.
Still too dense.
It's not good. Okay, let's get back to business here with case number 6. 25-031. 2219 Holt Road.
In your supplemental packet, you'll find 56 letters of opposition. This is spanning over 3 separate public hearings. One, when this was recommended for disapproval by this body at the September Development Commission, tabled last month at the October Development Commission, as well as what was received prior to this hearing. The 20.02 acre site consists of 4 parcels, each developed with a single unit dwelling and zoned in the R rural district. The applicant requests the LAR1 limited apartment residential district to allow for a 312 unit apartment complex down from 384 units previously. Limitation text includes use restrictions and a maximum of 312 dwelling units and includes a commitment to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plan and building elevations. North of the site are single unit dwellings in the R rural district. South are single unit dwellings in the R rural district and LR2 limited residential districts. To the west are single unit dwellings in the R rural district and undeveloped land in the M manufacturing district. And east of the site are single unit dwellings in the LR2 limited residential district and PUD6 planned unit development district. The site is within the planning boundaries of the Westland Plan, which recommends residential 3 to 5 units per acre land uses at this location, and is also subject to early adoption of Columbus citywide planning policies, design guidelines. The site is located within the boundaries of the Westland Area Commission, whose recommendation is for disapproval. The Division of Traffic Management has indicated that it can't support a recommendation of conditional approval for this application at the Development Commission hearing with satisfactory resolution of the following comments to be completed and any necessary additional comments, traffic comments, or access revisions from the final version of the traffic impact study to be addressed prior to application Z25031. Advancing to City Council. This is to using the site percentage of 21.02% from page 27 of the traffic impact study and an estimate of this is type of 5,853,86. Yeah. For potential future improvements at the intersection of Holt Road and Alcar Road. The developer responsibility for a contribution towards these improvements would be $1,235,880.39. The proposed LAR1 limited apartment residential district will allow multi-unit residential development with up to 312 dwelling units. Although the proposal is a higher density than the recommendation by the plan, design guidelines note that projects that are proposed at a density higher than the recommended land use may be supported if they include a high level of site and architectural design. Staff notes the proposed site plan includes activation of the central open space and around the proposed basin and includes evergreen trees to screen the southern property line, consistent with the plan and C2P2 design guidelines. Staff is therefore supportive of this rezoning with the condition that any necessary commitments identified by the Division of Traffic Management be included in the final limitation text. Therefore, City Staff's recommendation is for conditional approval, and I'll take any questions.
Okay, any questions? Dan, traffic issues?
Apologies for the typo in the estimate, a 5 and 3 joined together to become an 8. So it was instead of 8660, it's 53660. So apologies for that.
You were counting your small change in your pocket.
I guess so. The applicant has requested reconsideration of the contribution amount that's in that comment, and discussions between the Department of Public Service and the applicant are ongoing to that effect.
All right. Any questions or comments up here? Are there any speakers to case number 6? One speaker? Okay.
I'm Jeffrey L. Brown, attorney for the applicant.
Mark Catalano with Fairway Companies, the applicant.
This piece of property is a little unique in that to the north, you see a driveway. There's a flag lot that goes all the way back west of our property line. And to the south, you see another driveway, which is another flag lot. So that's a little unique in terms of our property borders 2 different flag lots. And so when we were here, Jack Reynolds was here because I was out of town. We presented to you a site plan, and there was comments about the open space and the density and how you activated it and what you were doing. So what you're seeing there is our original site plan and the layout. And if you could just now flip to our proposal, you see what we have done. We've eliminated 72 units, with nearly 20% reduction in terms of the number of units. We've created a much more usable central open space that we activate by having the dog park, the clubhouse, the pool, and some other amenities as part of that. And then you'll see the white line, which is again the internal sidewalk system that goes around that whole loop. So we think we've created a much stronger common gathering place. We've surrounded it by buildings on the north, and we kind of switched the buildings and brought them in and put garages to the north. To the west, where the two closest houses are, as you can see, one there, and then under the, I guess, the US in that picture is the other house. There's a wooded area back there that we're going to try to save to the extent that we can. And the building setback is 75 feet there. On the south, you can see the evergreens that we have. We back up to the ends of our units to that 50-foot strip. And then the houses that are in that subdivision, if you look, those are the rear yards of those homes. And most of those homes have existing fences, privacy fences along their property line. So we feel that this site plan addresses the concerns that the commission expressed in terms of one, density, two, better utilization of the open space and being able to activate it. So we think what we're presenting to you is a much better situation. Now, in terms of transportation, we are doing our best in terms of what the city asked us to do. We did a traffic study, which they reviewed. There are turn lanes that we are required to do. The city changed their regulations between the time I did the zoning to the north to the zoning here. And so we thought we would use the same type of numbers in terms of a per unit cost. And the city has come back, as you saw, with something over $1 million, which is not doable. But there is a process under their regulations. They have further discussions, and we're having that. I think the important thing to do in terms of this is Holt Road is a 2-lane road. A lot of the development that has occurred in the past went with very little, if none, of road improvements. And so what you have here when you start to the north is the turn lanes and the taper. Then you have our turn lanes and our tapers. And so you almost get to the point where you've now created or will create a 3-lane section between these two developments. So that's a positive situation in terms of the traffic. But at the end of the day, Westland was concerned about the density and the amount of development in this area. And so we've tried to address the density issue by reducing it significantly and then reorganizing that to kind of address the open space. So we think this is an appropriate land use. The city has indicated that they're not going to grow out further. So what you're going to see and have seen in the past are more kind of inner outer developments in terms of stuff that's either already in the city or annexable to the city. And a lot of this are old township lots, which under the code had to be at least 5 acres in size. So if you pick up several of those, like my client did in this instance, all of a sudden you have a developable site. So we tried to look at what's around us and try to lay out our plan as best we could with either the orientation of the building or with the additional landscaping and setbacks that we're showing here.
Okay, I think we got it. Anybody have any questions for Jeff? All right, let's get you off the table. We have one speaker.
Hello, my name is Beth Brooks, and I live at Knoll Crest Drive, which is across the street from this apartment building that they're wanting to build. First, I just wanted to thank you guys for all that you do and for the, I learned a lot about this process, and I feel bad I didn't bring snacks because this has been quite an ordeal. So the pictures the developer gave you, gives you the impression that this is kind of like a rural area. I feel like looking at the pictures of, that they took of around the area, I should walk down there and pet a cow or something like that. But it was definitely not. There is a lot in that area. So I don't really have a name for where I live. So I asked Google what I was, and it came up that we were a cluster, which made me laugh that we were a cluster. So it picks different areas that have a lot of apartments or in small areas. So that's what Google defined as a cluster. So the other clusters that they're like in Easton, Short North, all those kind of areas with lots of apartments with sidewalks and things like that. Our area is just a 1.5 miles that I'm thinking about. You got Holt Road on one side, and then you have Demarest on the other. So 1.5 miles, and in that 1.5 like rectangle area, there's going to be 11 apartments in that one area. In the middle of it, I started to count them, but I got tired at 350. But in the middle, there's all these houses. So I'm guessing like 800 houses. And then at the end of Holt Road is 5 schools. So we have a 2-lane road, which they mentioned, with all the school traffic. And it ends up, when I did the math for each of those apartments, was 2,037 apartments in that 1.5 mile area. So it's a lot. And that's what I'm here about, is just kind of trying to see if we can find a way to expand Columbus, but just to do it in a little bit more spread out area. So the reason that I obviously am against having this across the street from my neighborhood is safety. So they already know that there's a lot of traffic. They have a sign that says, "Do not block the intersection," right where we are. So I don't know if you've ever had this where one side is completely stopped and you have to turn left and you can't quite see if cars are speeding really, really fast. So you have to say, do I trust that person who's waving me? Are they telling me that no one's coming? And so that's what I'm going to have to deal with every day at this apartment complex, because not only is it challenging to turn left right now, I'll have like 700 cars coming out the other way to compete with. So I got to take this left turn, decide if this random person is worth if their opinion is okay, and then turn in front of these cars coming. And so that's what I worry about, is safety. It's just that there's no light, there's nothing we're gonna have them coming towards us and we're gonna be leaving at the same time. And it's already busy enough to begin with. And the other thing was, I looked at all these apartments. So there's 11 apartments around this 1.5 miles. And I looked to see if there is apartments available, and there are. You go on the website and each of these apartments, they have apartments available. So there already is availability going on in my area where we live. So they're building, so we got Knollcrest Drive. So they already approved, I think it's 375 apartments next door to this one that we're looking at. So they're already building ones there. Then they're also building ones on Georgesville. And then they're building one on Demarest, and then they're building another one on Demarest. So when I say there's a lot of apartments, there is. So 1.5 miles, I could actually run that poorly, but I could run it. It's not a long area. So there's just a lot of apartments. And also just crowding of the Central Crossing schools is just going to add more students. So I just ask, just kind of be in my shoes. If you can help with safety, that's the biggest thing I'm concerned about, because if there was a light there and the roads were a little wider, that'd be great. I wouldn't care. I just really worry about turning left, and then my children are in the passenger seat, and I just don't want to do that. And I shouldn't be afraid to leave my house. So that's just what I wanted to say. And I thank you for your time. I really appreciate how much you guys do. You guys are troopers. I can't believe there's no food. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
We'll get. Yes, sir, you may.
Okay, thank you.
I live in the house just north of the property. And along the same lines, my driveway is 0.3 of a mile. Oh, sorry, Mike Lowers. My driveway is about 0.3 of a mile from Alcar Road. When I came here tonight, the traffic was backed up 1/4 of a mile past my driveway. So that's over 1/2 of a mile already. That's before the first person moves in to the apartments down at Alcar Road, or these, if these are built. My neighbors already, we time when we can leave the house because the traffic is so bad. Um, So the other thing I wanted to bring up is, we all just saw what happened in Louisville, the plane crash. You don't show it there, but my house is about 3/4 of a mile from the end of Bolton Field runway. If an aircraft in distress, now I live in a single ranch house, but if an aircraft in distress ever hit one of these 3-story apartment buildings, there could be a lot of death and destruction. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. If the city would give me a traffic light every time I wanted one, life would be so much better. But unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. The problems that we see throughout the city where you're having development occur on these 2 lanes roads is prior to anybody coming from our development, people get stuck with because there's no left turns. Now, unfortunately, in terms of Holt Road, a lot of that development predated the city being a little more active in terms of traffic, and so there are minimal improvements. But in terms of what we're doing, we are doing our turn lanes. As I said, when you start putting our turn lanes and the turn lanes to the north with the newer developments, they all pretty soon start connecting, and then you get your 3-lane section. So that's a positive with what's going on. I don't know, the city also, if they get enough interest at city council, council seems to be able to find money to look at traffic improvements. They did that in the Trayview corridor, where the Wagenbrenners are developing at one end and other people are developing along Trayview and 270. So, if enough people complain, then the city council takes notice and tries to help out with this. So we are doing what we should be doing. The city is again asking us to contribute to a regional improvement that will benefit everybody. So one, we think this is an appropriate land use. We think what we're presenting to you is a much better plan in a massive reduction. I mean, we didn't just pull one building or anything. We dropped 72 units, and in terms of organizing the open space and being able to activate it, we think what we're showing you meets those goals. So at the end of the day, this is appropriate. There's a need, and the traffic sooner or later will handle itself. But we are a positive with that because of the things that we are doing on Holt Road. Okay, and I think road improvements are being taken care of much faster than they used to be. There's been several projects in the last 2 or 3 months where the road in question was being improved, if not greatly improved, by left turn lanes and deceleration lanes. And they were not something that came about 20 years later, but they're almost concurrent. You agree with that? Your paycheck may not show it. Yeah.
I'd have to review the cases.
Okay. All right, anybody else have any comments here?
Is there nobody from?
We've had 2 speakers, but nobody.
Yeah, the area commission's not here. Correct?
No, Mike McKay's not here. All right, I need a motion to call the roll.
It's my understanding that this project is going to give money toward improvement on Whole Road.
It is.
It's going to improve for the Whole Road.
These 2 guys sitting in front of you are going to come up with $1.5 million.
$1.5 million to help improve Whole Road that nothing.
Oh, they're only one, but they're spreading the joy around others. And that's the way to do it. There was a time when nobody wanted to build a sidewalk. I had very multimillionaire clients that would send in a letter and say, I will not build a sidewalk to nowhere, but I will commit myself to connecting with other sidewalks when they.
Just doing something to improve Whole Road.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're not going to.
The Whole Road in a long time.
Well, I think the pressure builds up to where they ask for some help. And then instead of waiting till there's 30 ducks in a row.
Beneficial.
Everybody. It's going to benefit everybody. And, you know, call city council and raise hell with them too. Okay, let's go on with request to vote. And Janice, you haven't spoken all night.
Oh, second.
I mean, you didn't win your election, but you're still. Okay, please call the roll. There's still a lot you can do.
Okay, thank you.
Janice Keith Shanklin,
No.
Maria Conroy,
I'm also gonna, I'm going with Westland. I'm gonna vote no.
John Ingwerson,
This is really a strange lot. I'm going to vote yes.
I can't hear it.
Yes.
Sorry. Kaden Mukwe,
Yes.
Dan Fertelman,
Yes.
Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Just sure you grab the little one on the side.
Yeah, I didn't see her.
It has been a very long time. I try not to be down here very often.
Should we send out for some pizzas?
Yeah, really.
Okay. Case number 7 and final. D25-051, 464 Rath Mill Road.
The 17.1 acre site consists of one parcel developed with a religious facility in the R Rural District. The applicant requests the LARLD Limited Apartment Residential District to allow for the development of a multi-unit residential development with 216 units. North of the site are single-unit dwellings in the R2 Residential District. West of the site is an apartment complex in the AR12 Apartment Residential District. East of the site is a religious facility in the PUD Planned Unit Development in the city of Obetz. South of the site are single-unit dwellings in the R Rural District in Hamilton Township. Concurrent CV 25-097 has been filed to increase garage building height. That request will be heard by City Council and will not be considered at this Development Commission meeting. The site is within the planning boundaries of the South Central Accord, which recommends low-density residential land uses at this location. The site is also subject to early adoption of Columbus Citywide Planning Policy's design guidelines. The site is located within the boundaries of the Far South Columbus Area Commission, whose recommendation has not been received when this report was finalized. The limitation text includes use restrictions, a maximum of 216 units, and includes supplemental development standards addressing perimeter yards, side and rear yards, pedestrian connectivity, and landscaping. Commitments to develop the site in accordance with the submitted site plan and building elevations are also included in the text. The Columbus Multimodal Thoroughfare Plan identifies this portion of Parsons Avenue as a suburban community connector corridor requiring 100 feet of right-of-way. The requested LARLD district will allow a multi-unit residential development that is compatible with the density and development standards of adjacent multi-unit residential developments. Although the proposed density exceeds the South Central Accord recommendation of low-density residential, C2P2 design guidelines recommends projects that are proposed at a higher density than the recommended land use may be supported if they include a high level of site and architectural design. The Department of Public Service, Division of Traffic Management has the following outstanding comments. A traffic impact study is in progress in conjunction with this application. Additional commitments or access revisions may be needed based on the results of the approved traffic impact study. Based on the current limits of these applications, additional off-site pedestrian infrastructure would be required per CCC 4309.08. Further review and discussion will be needed to determine the necessary off-site pedestrian infrastructure to satisfy this requirement. Upon resolution of these comments, City Department's recommendation will be for full approval, and City Department's recommendation is for conditional approval.
Okay, thank you. Anybody question? Dan, traffic?
The traffic impact study includes the intersection of Parsons Avenue and Rathmel Road, which is Franklin County jurisdiction. So their review is still in progress. It'll need to be completed before we can return a comment letter for that study. For the second bullet point, we met with the applicant on Monday, and they presented a proposal that could address that comment if it ultimately makes it into the
Off-site
application. That's correct.
improvements. Okay, very good. Speakers?
The only thing I have to say is at Rathville and State Route 23 is a very dangerous intersection as is. Talking 1 to 3 accidents there every week. That'd be my only concern.
Okay.
With added vehicles.
I'm just gonna say that as a property owner, that this will be in my backyard. Based on the current drawings, I'm very concerned with the high density directly behind my property.
Okay, we're kind of doing this backwards, but
I'm sorry.
wait,
Oh, and I apologize. There are 2 letters of opposition in your supplemental packet.
okay. Give us your name for the record and let's hear from you.
Good evening, Jill Tangeman, 47 Seymour and Pease, 52 East Gay Street. And I'm joined by Joe Thomas with Metro Development. I think this, first I wanted to add to Alyssa's report. While we were sitting out there, we received the written area commission, which was for approval. And so this is a unique site. We developed the site to the west, which is the Orchards. And we were actually contacted by the church that owns this property about developing the site. They were really happy with the orchard and the additional community that was built, and asked us if we were interested in this site. At 12 units to the acre, it's pretty low density really for these days for a multifamily development. The site has a stream running through the middle of it, which makes it really ideal for a multifamily project, because we can really make that an amenity as opposed to carving it up with single-family residence. We've done quite a bit of landscaping and obviously preservation. This site has also got an interesting grade. It drops pretty significantly from the north to the south. So we actually sit several feet lower than the residential. So while these are 3-story buildings, they're actually going to sit down into the site quite a bit. So it almost knocks off a full story of their view. We've tried to make sure that 1-story buildings or the garage buildings are on the boundary line, where we do have a couple of residential properties or residential buildings. We've turned them on their side, so it's pretty low impact, no windows onto those residential properties. We've committed to additional landscaping along that setback as well. And our sole access will be out to Parsons Avenue, so limited impact onto Rathmel Road, which I know is a concern. But we think this is an ideal use here. As we all know, the data center that is building to the south there, as they get up and, well, now they have a lot of construction jobs, but as they get up and running, there's going to be a need for places for the employees to live, and this is an ideal location. So appreciate any questions you have, and thank you for your time.
Oh, it looks like this manner of executing site plans is catching on for privacy and buffering.
Ferris is getting pretty good.
Yes, yeah.
He's learned. It's taken him a while, but he's learning.
A tough site.
Yeah.
But the creek, the creek is nice.
Yeah.
Can you speak to about, maybe I missed it, but is this church being demolished or what?
No, they're staying right there. They are on the far, if you're looking at the site plan corner of the property, and no, they're continuing. So we're splitting the property and they're keeping, it's about 22 acres. They're keeping 5 and we're taking 17.
I'm just looking at the dash lines around it and kind of wondered.
No,
Those are included variances we have to request to make them conforming for the fact that we're gonna have a lot split between us and the church parcels. So we'll have to have some council variances for those non-conforming issues for the rear yard and so on. So that's what we've indicated on the site plan.
yeah, just to make sure their lot's conforming when we just split it.
Easy
You sure you don't
access for the
want
comments.
to argue for another 45 minutes?
I don't think so.
Fair. I do think you should offer the speakers a formal chance to speak. So.
If you would like to step up to the microphone, we'll hear your comments again.
Can we at least get your names, please, so for our record?
Dawson Dixon.
Sounds like a country singer
Thank
to
you.
me.
Thank you.
All right. And your name? Okay. Well, remember that when you get famous. All right. I need a motion to take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, please call the roll.
Maria Conroy,
Yes.
John Ingerson, Cam Wukwe, Dan Fertelman,
Yes.
Janice Keys Shanklin, Chair Fitzpatrick.
Yes. It's a consensus vote.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Super. So does that mean they're gonna get, again, my side remarks on the transcriptions?
That's why we record it.
Yeah.
Stream it and record it.
Oh, trust me, when we were